Welcome to the podcast. Nathan Newberry here, your host. I have Adam Torres here, and you guys are going to love his backstory of like where he started and where he's gone. He has his amazing company with his agency where he's helping people use the stories and build a brand. And we're going to talk about some really tactics at the end of it, but you're also going to hear an amazing story from him. Before we do that, down below in the show notes, I want to give everybody that's listening a gift. Everybody needs to know how to build a personal brand. Even before this, me and Adam were talking about how this has changed our lives of building a personal brand. So you need to do that. Down below, I have a workshop, free workshop that really explains how you can do that, even if you're starting. And then even if you're working on scale, you need to know how to do that and leverage that. Take that as you will. Adam, as we're jumping into our podcast here, I want to ask you a question around high performance. What does that look like? How do you define that for your life? How do you kind of apply that? What would that definition look like?
I'd say creating a plan, executing on it, and discipline. Like those would be the three key ingredients. And I'll just take it one level deeper and say I'm not that disciplined, so I create systems around my discipline so that it's almost forced discipline.
Yeah.
And based off of that, I've been able to maybe some uncommon results in some uncommon places. Like I've done over 6,000 podcast interviews, and that wasn't from me waking up every morning saying, "Hey, wait." And by the way, if I interviewed you earlier today, I loved it. It was fine. But let's just say I don't wake up every day wanting to put on my suit and tie and to interview people, like a shocker, right? Not every day, but I have that discipline because there's a strategy, execution, and then the discipline is forced through systems. I have a loaded calendar. I follow my calendar.
I love that, man. Well, tell us like a little bit at the, like, what do you do? How do you help clients right now? So people get some context of how you serve them, at a top level.
Yeah. So I guess I'll start briefly from the beginning. So myself, I was a corporate guy in finance, almost 14 years in that business. I started at my very first finance company when I was 16 years old at Raymond James and Company in their
16.
IRA department. I was in their IRA department, was not licensed yet, but I mean, I was a happy corporate person, by the way. So I did well. I went to college, all that good stuff. And then fast forward a bit, I found myself starting my own, 14 years later, my own RIA. And I was managing money and I was helping my clients. And then I wrote this little book, and I wrote this book not because I wanted to. First off, I was like, why would I write a book? Books are for broke people. Like, why do I want to sell a $5-10 product? And for everybody that's listening, I've since evolved. Now I understand the power of a story. Now I understand the power of helping people. But I just want you to know that I'm recovering from maybe having a little bit of chip on my shoulder. I was a finance guy. I grew up when I was 16. All we talk about is money, stocks, and making money. That was it. Like, I didn't know anything else. So when my mentor told me, "Hey, Adam, you got to write a book," I laughed at him and I'm like, "Write a book? Why would I do that? It's silly." And he's like, "You got to do it." So I did it because I listened to my mentors when I believe they're giving me great advice, even if I don't understand it at that time. And the book, little self-published book, no real marketing behind it. For some reason, some way, it did well. And I found myself on speaking tours as far away as China. And so it just brought all these other experiences to my life. And since, by the way, like I said, now I believe we've published getting back to your question, we've published over 400 authors in our book publishing agency. And then I'll take it one step further and say, when it came down to launching a podcast, the other co-founder here, his name is Chirag Sagar, he says, "Adam, we got to launch a podcast." I'm like, I'm not launching no stupid podcast. You notice a theme here, right, Nathan? Like, I'm not doing that. That's silly. Like, I want to be behind a mic like this wannabe entertainer. I don't have any entertainment background. Nobody cares about what I have to say. I'm a book publisher, right? So I'm like, why would that even matter? He's like, "Well, Adam, one of us has to do it, and it's not going to be me." I'm like, "All right, fine." Yeah. So I was like, "But you're my first guest because I don't know what the heck I'm doing." So Chirag was my first guest, and since I mentioned before, I've done over 6,000 interviews now, and as an agency, we've helped launch and we've personally in-house launched over 200 shows, and we built big brands and other great things like that. And that's, again, 9 years later. So that's some of the technical side of what we do. But my message and what I want the audience to understand is that I started as bad as you can ever get. And people think I'm being humble or this or that. Nathan, let me tell you, my very first show, I didn't even use my name. I was so deathly afraid that somebody would find out I was doing a podcast
Mm.
or that I was recording stuff, that I had like a nickname that some friends had given me, Mr. Century City, and that was because I was in Century City, California. So I literally used to introduce myself. I wouldn't even use my name, let alone put something on social media. Are you crazy? Like, that's insane. In a million years, I wouldn't do that. And not only was I scared then, I finally evolved to using my name. But then I probably did the first 1,500 to 2,000 episodes and no video. You turn on a camera and oh my gosh, I would
Wow.
freeze up and I'd be like, what's my name? Welcome to who's my name? I couldn't even say my name if you turned on a camera. It was done.
Wow.
So when I hear other people that maybe are thinking of doing something, maybe there's a little bit of a fear element there. Hey, I always say, if I could do it, you could do it too. I was the worst. If you can get on a Zoom call right now and look at somebody in the eye, you're 100 times further ahead than I was. So I wouldn't even turn on a camera, and that's deathly afraid of all of that. So that's my encouragement to the audience, is that if you have a story, like, tell it.
Yeah. I want to ask you like the origin story a little bit here, Adam. At 16, getting into the finance world. I mean, a 16-year-old, they don't normally have a job like that. How was your upbringing? Did you have a family that was really focused on this or was doing that already that encouraged you to get in that line of business?
Actually, the complete opposite. So one of the best things my parents ever did was tell me what they didn't know.
Hmm.
So because my dad was a small business owner. He owned a like auto body shop. I'm from Michigan originally, Detroit. And so, painting cars, that kind of thing. And then my mom was a social worker for 40 plus years. So when it came down to, they saw I had an aptitude for business or wanted to learn how to make money, frankly, they were like, hey, Adam, like, we don't know how to do that. Like, you need to figure out and to be around people that do know how to do that. And the next step for that was becoming the financial advisors and things like that. Like, that's who they knew. So they would just introduce me to their friends, business owners, other people like that were, and through and eventually, I think through my high school, Cass Tech, they had this little internship program. And so one of the participants was a company called Roney and Company. This is a long time ago, which was bought by Raymond James. And that's how I originally got in there. It was actually the complete opposite. My parents were very upfront and they were like, we don't know about that. You need to be around people that do know about that if that's an interest. So that was a huge tip. And that really set me up for success.
Amazing, man. And then how old were you when you wrote that book? Was it at 16 or 17 when you wrote that?
No, the first book was actually when I started my first, I would call business, my RIA. So that was a book on money. It was called Money Matters, and it's still out there, still on Amazon. And if anybody wants an example of it's still, I believe it's a great book from the standpoint of, it is my story. I put my heart into that. But if we want to talk about aesthetically pleasing, like, let me tell you, Nathan, and I leave it out there, we're a full publishing company. I could republish it. I could change it. I could do other things. I leave it up there. I call it my ugly duckling. The freaking cover is the worst book cover you ever seen in your life. I'm like sitting there. You can kind of see where a little Photoshop, it might have been the old school Canva before they had all the AI and everything. You can see it looks like somebody copied over the cover and there's a line going through it. And that's the actual printing. That's not an Amazon mistake. That's how the file was submitted. But I leave it up there because I want other people to know, like, I didn't even know how to write. The way I did that was, I was traveling, and this is a little bit old school. Now any app does this pretty much, but I used a recording app and I basically just spoke the book. I was like, I tell you what I can do. I can't sit down and write, but I could come up with 21 different topics and I could tell a story around those topics. I could have that transcribed and I can hire an editor to make it into what we call a book.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's how the first one was done.
That's the way to do it. That's unique because I think now a lot of people leverage that when they write their books. But I think even probably when you wrote that first book, it probably wasn't a common thing.
No, that's 9 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now, after you've written books and speaking and have done so many podcasts, what have been some of the big takeaways that you wish you knew when you first started?
I wish I knew the power of story to change people's lives. Like, I just started, and we were talking about this a bit, Nathan, but I've been in this business now 9 years, and I just started coming on podcasts to share my story. So I wish I knew like how important it was to share my story and how it can help and inspire people, because it's not always the size of the platform. It's not all these things. So sometimes you look at a platform like, should I be doing this, or who wants to hear my voice, or is my story going to help? And I'll tell you one thing, some people will listen to the Nathan Newberry show and they'll listen to your show and they'll like that more than Joe Rogan, because Joe Rogan just doesn't do it for them. And they'll be like, nah, Nathan's my guy. That's who I listen to. And your story and your words and what you say is going to resonate more than a Joe Rogan or somebody else. And not picking on him, by the way, but it's just saying that for whatever reason, we feel a connection to voice and content and the heart of other content creators as both collaborators, like coming on shows like this today, like consumers by listening to an episode, and then also as participants when you go on a show and maybe guests. Like you feel different connections, and you don't have to be like once upon a time when the only brand was like a Michael Jordan. You had to be like in the NBA or do something else to have a logo or a sneaker or something else. Now, what I'm so thrilled about with whether it's AI or whether it's just the current time that we live in is that everybody's voice can be heard. And if you want your story to be told, you can tell it. And you were talking about personal brands. And if you want to build a personal brand, then you can actively do that in many, many different ways where once upon a time you couldn't. And if you don't want to build a personal brand, spoiler alert, that is a personal brand. You not participating sends out a message. So all of these things, though, lead to one thing: story, like your power to help somebody else. So if you want to help people, if you want to help the world, then contribute by creating content.
Yeah. So many people have this self-limiting belief, and maybe it's even a fear tied to it, but they're like, hey, the ship has sailed, or maybe I shouldn't even start because I probably should have started it back when you started a decade ago. What would you say, to that comment, or people that are like, I don't know if I should start or it's too late?
Yeah. It's uneducated. That's all it is. You just don't know. If that's your belief and you're listening, you're just naive. And I don't mean that like in a negative way. I mean it in a very literal sense. And I'll give you one piece of data just to give you an example, so that it's put some meat on that bone. So if we think about, and I'm gonna so I'll be self-interested for a moment, and I will be upfront in saying that I want everybody listening to launch a podcast, period. And this is why. If you think about YouTube, which I have a YouTube channel, I'm not against YouTube. I'm just talking about why I think everybody should launch a podcast. If you think about YouTube, over 150 million channels, depending, give or take, or where you get your data from. If you think about podcasts, about 4 million, depending on where you get your data from. In my opinion, we're like in year one of YouTube, and people don't know it. And the reason why they don't know it is because they think podcasting has been around so long. Now, there has been audio and distribution, but if you think about the actual podcast ecosystem and the billions of dollars that Apple and Spotify have invested in building it, that has not been that long ago. And so when you think about the early days of YouTube, what made it so successful was that you could monetize small channels based off of views. With podcasting, that didn't used to be possible. And the reason is because it came out of radio. In radio, there was only host read ads. There wasn't dynamic ads where you could sell 100 downloads and then put another advertiser on it. So what this means is that because the technology and the ecosystem is caught up, my belief is that there's going to be 100 million plus podcasts. And whether that's in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years, whatever the amount of time is, there's going to be podcasts in 20 years. There's going to be 100 million podcasts. So now, if we just kind of juxtapose my example here, if we were talking about YouTube right now and there were only 4 million YouTube channels, and you knew for certain that in 20 or 30 years there was going to be 150 million YouTube channels, would you have started a YouTube channel, and would you have released a video every week for your entire life because you knew what was going to happen and you wanted to position yourself properly for that onslaught of eyeballs, attention, and money? Yeah, you would have. So now, if you're listening to this, you know 100% what's going to happen. For maybe the first time in your life, you have insider information and you know what's going to happen. Now, whether you choose to participate, it's up to you, but that's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've seen the compounding growth of even having a personal brand. And I think people miss that. They're like, I don't want to put myself out there. Or many times it's just a fear of like, hey, I'm showing people my life.
Yeah.
So you're talking about the story is so good that people want to be a part of that. And I
Mm-hmm.
think the big shift, with marketing is that we're not really compelled or convinced by a billboard and a bus bench anymore. That's
Yeah.
not as compelling. The big shift is influencer marketing. So if
Mm.
people see your personal brand and resonate with you, and if you're offering a widget or a program
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, it provides that. And then, like you're suggesting, and what I teach a lot of my students is you got to build a podcast. It's definitely 100% useful. But what I've noticed is that there's a transfer of trust, right? If
Mm.
all of your, followers, Adam, jump on here and they're like, hey, I had an amazing interview with Nathan. All of a sudden, there's a transfer of trust. Or if
Mm-hmm.
I'm on your podcast one day, there's a transfer of trust with that. It's like the same
Mm-hmm.
thing with speaking, right? Like I could show up to even a conference or a seminar, right? I don't even know who's on it, right? But all of a
Yeah.
sudden they jump on that stage and they're introduced. All of a sudden there's this transfer of trust of this authority that's built. And
Mm.
I love that you're talking about podcasts now because we're in YouTube now. We're in that transition.
Yeah.
And I teach a lot of my students to point everything back to YouTube
Mm-hmm.
because the way that they're serving the algorithms, and maybe you've seen this with your podcast, is they're serving these content. It's not a 24 to 48 hour window like all the social media platforms are.
Yeah.
It's like I'm getting served videos that could be 6 to 10 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and it's still populating in algorithms of serving it to ideal clients that are yours. A
Yeah.
podcast is really, really good with that. I want to ask you this question too, Adam: volume versus quality. Because there's so many times people are like, hey, I got to just put a mass amount of quality or content out there. And there or some people that take a lot of time to do,
Mm.
you know,
Mm.
good quality work. I think there could be an overlap for both, but I want to get your take of like how you view it, how you apply it to
Yeah.
the clients you've served, and then also your brand that you have too.
I've seen both, but I'm going to get pretty specific on this one. So let's start with the high quality people. So and we're going to say maybe let's just add some numbers to this. So 1 to 10. Let's say you're a level 10 being the highest perfectionist. And if you're going to do a single season and you're a level 10 perfectionist, then you better have some real ad budget because you're going to have 10 amazing videos nobody's going to ever see. Like, period. So if you have a large ad budget, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Great. You can use that ad budget. You can release 1 episode per month, even if you want to. And it can be the highest level quality, studio quality, whatever you want to do, and or whatever cadence it's going to be. But the only reason I say 1 per month is probably because you're going to spend a couple hundred hours getting that 1 video out. And that is what it is. It's okay. But again, I'm saying level 10. That means if you're a perfectionist and it's like network quality, you just got to have a big budget for advertising, just period. You have to. Let's go down the continuum a bit. Let's say level 5, which I would put my show actually at level 5. And the reason I put it at level 5 is because I have a quantity of quality. And the reason is because, just for example, we had over 30,000 applications on the show last year. So the reason is because of the amount of years I've been in the business and the reputation as a host that I've been able to acquire. So the people that want to come on our show that we say no to, they're just not normal people that even want to come on shows, period. They're just different. I'll give you one quick example. I interviewed the CEO of the gentleman that runs the fund for the Saudi royal family yesterday. That's ridiculous. Right. So he's not looking for promo or media, but he had a very specific message that he had to have a trusted relationship with who he felt was the right host and platform to bring that message to. So in my case, after 9 years, I can say I'm a number 5. I'm not a perfectionist right now. If you're watching this video, you're going to see I have a headset on that looks like I'm a sports broadcaster. I'm good with that. I do interviews in front of audiences of hundreds, sometimes a couple thousand people, and I do interviews in backyards for barbecues. I'm good. You want me there? I'm a hired gun. I'm in, right? This is my business. I'm okay with that. So in the middle ground, if you find yourself there to where you have some resources, you can build some infrastructure and you can have a team of editors and people, then go for quantity and get the highest level guests that you can get. I didn't have this plan, by the way, Nathan, of doing over 6,000 interviews. And for context, I'm not relaxing. This year, I'll do 1,500 to 2,000 interviews this year.
Wow.
So we're only ramping up the pace, just FYI. But
how many
you
is
had to
that
have
a day?
I don't track the daily, but a slow week is like 30 for me. But on sometimes when I do conferences, I might do 30 in a day, or it just FY. And those are shorter, like 7-minute interviews because they're live. And then if I'm doing back to back, there's a bunch of different formats, but it breaks down to 1,500 to 2,000. Some are longer form, some are an hour, some are so every format you can think of, I do. Except for the 2-3 hour Joe Rogan. I don't do that. I'm sorry. I fall asleep. Like, no, I don't care. Leave me alone. If you want to talk to me for 2 hours, I don't want to do it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But getting back to that continuum, because I think it'll be helpful to finish building this one out. So a level 5, if you have resources, you can build a team and you're good, like do it. Like do it. If you're level 1, let's just say you don't know what the heck you're doing and it's just spray and pray. I will say that's how I started. The only reason I was the worst, I didn't even use my name. Like, and when I'm as a host, like what host doesn't use their name because they're scared
Right.
that somebody's going to listen. So if you're a level 1 and you're scared, I was a level 0. I was so scared that I wouldn't even use my name. So go figure that. Like, so I started at level 0 and there's hope for a level 1. And I'll tell you why I'm the most hopeful actually for the level 1 over the level 10, because this little thing happened to us when we were doing this. And I still don't know. I've never met anybody else that affirmed that this happened to them, but it happened to me. So I just started saying yes. And this is the early days. I started saying yes to everybody. I'm like, well, because in the beginning we had to beg people to come on the show because we didn't have a website. We didn't have anything. I'm like, please, like my mom, I'm like, hey mom, you want to come on the show? Like she's been a guest many times. Like, let's come. What are we going to talk about? I don't know. Just come on the show. It's fine. It doesn't matter. But I was a level 0 again. So what happened was this, and this was the turning point, and this is what changed everything. At some point we had like 50 to 70 interviews in the can and people were still asking to come on the show, and we were only releasing at a cadence of like at first 1 per week, then it was 1 per day, then it was 2 per day. But then even at 70, if it was like 50 to 70 that we had, we're like, man, I can't invite somebody on the show and be like, sorry, there's 60 episodes we have to release before you get yours released. So this is what I did, Nathan. I told my team, I was like, well, I don't have this figured out, but just release them all. And they're like, when? I said, today. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, just release them all. And they're like, well, what, Adam? Like, that's silly. That's stupid. Nobody does that. And I was like, well, no, but I don't have it figured out. But I know one thing. I can't bring on another guest and tell them that their episode's going to be released in 3 months because that's just disrespectful. And so then we released them all. And here's the crazy part, Nathan. Our per episode download went up. Think about that for a moment. And just for somebody else who's listening that may not understood what I said, think about it this way, just to juxtapose the example of Instagram. If you put out 70 posts on Instagram right now in one day, they're probably going to block you for spamming, or they're probably going to block you and you're all of a sudden going to be shadow banned. But even if you had a huge platform, your engagement, what doesn't matter how big the platform, you put out that many posts, like at some point Instagram's going to stop pushing and they're not going to like, you're going to be in trouble. So what happened with this for everybody listening is we release them all and more people listen per episode. And so what I realized is that in our case, we had a binge-worthy audience. They like to binge. So the more episodes, I just couldn't feed their appetite. Like they knew, like it didn't matter. And these are shorter episodes, by the way, for context. These are like 20 to 30-minute episodes maximum, just FYI. So our per episode download went up, which means that they were sharing it with more people. Now, I don't recommend this as a strategy, but I would love for somebody else to tell me that they had the same experience. But I don't know. I just don't know anybody else that has 70 backlogged and they're like, we're going to release them all today. Who cares? But after that just changed my whole mindset of what was even possible. And then I thought about it, and this is the one platform and why I'm so bullish on it, where the algorithm doesn't matter. Like podcast listeners, they maybe for new listeners that you don't know, it might matter who Apple's going to push you out to, who they're going to suggest. Great, whatever. But if you're out there doing the hardcore, like here goes an example. See what that is, Nathan?
Yeah, I saw that on your Instagram.
That's a poker chip with my face on it. On the back is a QR code. We've handed out thousands of these in Las Vegas, at conferences, at everywhere I go. So my point in being is that if you promote your show and somebody subscribes, especially and they get the notification, that's going directly to their phone. I don't care about an algorithm. Like, I'm out there hustling and making sure people know that my show exists and that it's worth listening to. And if you're doing that, doesn't matter if you're tech savvy or not. Like, we get a lot of our biggest promo by going out, shaking hands, looking people in the eye and saying, hey, we'd love for you to take a listen, give us a shot.
Yeah. You had talked about how the key part around building something is discipline. Talk about that transition from the very beginning of being an advisor up into this business that you have now, helping people release podcasts and books and being an agency that you do and help support people with this. How does discipline play into what you've had to learn and grow into to do and build an empire like you do?
So I designed this company just like I designed my financial advisory practice. So I think a big benefit for me is that I didn't know what I was doing. Like, I didn't know anything about media, podcasting, anything. I knew nothing about anything. So what that means is, for those that come from the financial advisor standpoint, and if they've ever done that, then they already know the math. X amount of phone calls leads to X amount of meetings, leads to X amount of business.
Right.
And so that's all I did. It was like X amount of interviews, X amount per week equals X amount of appointments for people that are maybe interested in working with us as an agency, leads to X amount of dollars. And everything was built on that. So based off of that, it was just math. I mean, at my record in 1 week, Nathan, 91 interviews.
Wow.
My record in a day, 26. So those are the early days. Now I say I'm like a part-timer, like slacking. If you're young and just starting out there and you want to, man, you better crush my numbers, because there's so much more opportunity now even than when I started. So you should crush my numbers. If that's something that you want to do and what I'm saying tracks and resonates to you, you could crush my numbers. But that being said, the discipline side, I told you I'm not that disciplined. So what did I do? I built out processes that force me to do interviews. And those processes are scheduling interviews. Simple. Schedule interviews. You don't know how to do that? Build your team around how to do that. You get people booked the same way that we had conversations that brought me on this show. You already have it. So very unlikely that you're going to cancel your interview on somebody, because you don't want to let them down. You don't want that on your name. So
Right.
that's discipline right there. It's forced discipline, in my opinion. Like, if I had to wake up every morning and think, do I want to do an interview today? Nathan, let me see. Let me think about it over coffee. Nah, that ain't happening. I want to go to the beach, brother.
Yeah.
But if it's already on my schedule, or if I already got 5 on my schedule, or if I'm already booked for a conference, if there's a plane I got to be on to go to Miami or New York or somewhere else to cover a conference, and I got a list of people I'm going to be interviewing, that's my you know what on the line. Not just my reputation, that's everything. And if I have a company that's dependent on that, and I have, and with, children, mortgages, things like, if you take this business serious, and once you do get to that point to where people are dependent on you for the interviews you do to fund their lifestyle and to keep their wives and husbands happy, right?
Yeah.
Then things change. You're in business then. And then the discipline part is, if you get to that point, it's just automatic. You're on a train. It's going faster. It's going faster. It's going faster. But hopefully you've been an active participant in building your business to the point to where you can grow into the shoes of who you need to be as a person to be able to handle that pressure. Like, I'm just a baby in media. I tell people that all the time. I'm like a little baby. Come on, I'm barely starting. And I already feel the pressure. So I'm like, I can't even imagine what somebody like a Joe Rogan feels like with a platform of that size, or some of the other greats out there. Like, Johnny Carson, like what would have been like for Johnny Carson to be like one of the only shows on TV that everybody in the United States was watching? Like, that's pressure. I say, I'm a baby. I haven't done anything yet. I'm not even like, I'm a toddler.
I try to define freedom in 3 different ways. It's having more money, more time, and then impact. And I feel like that's a full life if someone can create that. And you see both sides. If you have Steve Jobs, that was world denting, that really was focused on like money and building that. And then you have other people like Jesus, Gandhi, or Mother Teresa that leaned heavily toward impact. The time that you have here on earth, because we all have a limitation, you have a family, you have kids, you got speaking, you got books to write and publish and to release, and you got podcasts that you're on, and then you host, and then you have a business that you're running. How do you go about trying to define and create more of that sense of freedom in your life with trying to think of quote unquote balance, which in my interpretation, there's imbalance a lot in
Yeah.
life in certain sprints, things like that. How do you go about doing all of what you're doing right now to be, align with your true mission and film, that significance in film that God's all wired us to do?
Yeah. I'm glad that you brought up God. I feel this is my calling to help people through this. So the concept of freedom and things like that, like I just don't even, it doesn't even enter my mind. I'm a conduit. Like all I am is a conduit. Like I'm listening, like all the things that I've done or accomplished. Like I know when God is putting me on a certain path because things work. When I'm off or whenever I ignore things or something else, like gotta put me in the headlock. And he's like, come on, man. Like, you know what you're supposed to be doing. And so for me, freedom doesn't, I don't even think about freedom, like all of that. I do think about obligations. I think about obligations and commitments I make and keeping my word to my family and being present when I say I'm not married and I don't have kids or anything like that, but I have a girlfriend and I don't like, I believe in keeping my word and commitments, but I don't really, for me personally, I'm not saying this for you or for anybody else listening, but I'm speaking about my belief system. I don't know if freedom or the common word of happiness or this or that, I don't know if that's a worthwhile goal. Like if you have a calling and a mission and you've been called to do something and you're being shown things, I'm more so thinking about like what path God wants me on. And I'm just trying to listen. I'm trying to listen. I'm trying to feel the miracles as they happen, which they happen so often. If we just stop for a moment and think about it, and if we just pay attention, and if we like if everybody just operated from the belief of there's no coincidences, like just eliminate that word and replace coincidence with what's the message in this, like what is God trying to show me, like your whole perception on life will change. So not to not answer your question, I just don't, that doesn't, it's not how I view the world. Like I
Yeah.
don't really think about freedom. I don't think about like those type of things.
I want to ask you some tactics here. I mean, you've been able to do some really cool things for clients and for yourself. And outside of the answer of like, you just need to get started,
Yeah.
what would be some things like if someone wants to get on stages, if they want to
Mm-hmm.
start a podcast, if they want to start writing a book, what would be some navigations that you'd say, hey, this is
Yeah.
who I'd talk to, or this is what I'd do?
Well,
Or,
I give you a couple of tips. And these are all actionable today. If you want to write a book, and you want to especially use it for the personal branding element of it, then what I want you to do is hire a graphic designer or go online, whatever you want to do. There's a ton of places. You don't got to go to me, go to whoever you want, right? Hire a graphic designer, come up with a name, create a mock-up of that, and then do a post announcing it. You're author of the upcoming book. I don't care if you've written one word. Now you're an author. Done. Easy. One day now you have the branding of an author. Fact of the matter is, especially if you're a first-time author and you don't have any budget or any brand or any platform, you finishing that book probably doesn't matter anyway. Like nobody's going to read it. You might sell a couple hundred copies. Great. You might get more engagement on a social media post that says that you're author of the upcoming book and people supporting you than even writing the book. So you want to be an author? Announce it, create a mock-up, put it up there now today. You are now author of the upcoming book if you have not written a single word. Obviously, you have to write a title, right? And then the idea would be that you're not being nefarious with the information I gave you. Like, hopefully you have the intent of writing the book. But if we're talking about the personal branding side of it, and this is the part that for me, if we go a level deeper, I like to keep my commitments. If I put out a post that says I'm writing, now my you know what's on the line. I got to
yeah.
now I'm feeling pressure. My cousin puts a message on here. Oh, Adam, you're writing a book. That's cool. I don't want to let my cousin down. I'm more likely to get that book done if I announce it. The title can change, by the way. It could be a working title. You can change the book, the title, everything. Nobody's going to remember. It's okay. I promise you, nobody's going to be like, wasn't the title of your upcoming book this? And now it changed? Man, you'd be so freaking lucky. Just do your mock-up, put it out there. Done. That's one. I'll give you one more for the podcast side of it. You said outside of just get started, I would say start guesting on somebody else's podcast first, just to see if you even want to do it. Like there's no point in incurring the investment and the this and the that. I know we were introduced through Podmatch, which I don't know if you're part of I will plug this. Nathan did not ask me for anybody that's listening, but if Nathan has an affiliate link for Podmatch, I highly recommend using them. And Nathan, put in the show notes if you have it. Like I'm just telling everybody, I just started I've never guested until this year. And it was kind of, my team doesn't even know I'm doing it. They're going to see these and be like, what are you doing? They don't even know. But that being said, we were introduced through Podmatch. So that's my testimony. And I didn't make a single dime for saying that, but I hope Nathan does. So support him if he does have an affiliate link. But I would say start guesting on podcasts just to see if it's something you want to do, because then what happens is, let's speak specifically for your personal brand. You're going to get, if you do an interview on somebody else's show, that's a standalone piece, and that's its own work of art / collaboration. If you go and launch a show and now all of a sudden you did 2 episodes and you quit, that's also on your personal brand. I'm a quitter. So you don't want to do that. Like, don't do that. Make sure that you have the commitment to, if you do decide to launch a podcast, it's easy, do it, whatever. Even with an agency like ours, with anybody's agency, I don't care. Like, do it in your own, go on YouTube, figure it out. But don't do it if you're not going to stick with it. Like, I'd rather you not do that to your personal brand, because then what also happens is, think about, and people don't think about this, think about the guests you bring on your show. Like, what happens when they like look up their episode in a year or 2 years and they're like, man, this guy hasn't recorded? Like that's not cool. Like, so you could do as much to harm yourself as like help yourself if you're not careful.
What about speaking? What would you say to get on stages?
Your book will lead to speaking opportunities. Before I had a book, I paid to speak. I was a financial advisor. So I was like, man, if you knew me back then, Nathan, I'd be like, man, how much you got to invest? A stake on me. Come to you don't have to invest today, but I was paying big bucks to put butts in seats to then sell investment products, right? So, I mean, I was paying to speak. As soon as I had the book, everything changed. I started getting paid, and I was like, whoa, like, people actually pay people to speak? I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. And then you have to kind of make yourself, the way I like to look at it is, think of it as there's levels. If you don't have a podcast, you don't have a book, then you're at a certain level. Every single piece of real IP that you add to your brand it adds to your value as a speaker. So so every little piece, so think of it as a brick, and you don't have to do this day one. And if you're just looking for like getting your feet wet so you can practice, go to a Toastmasters, go to a whatever, like, you can do all those things. But I'm answering your question from the context of paid speaking gigs. Like, why should somebody pay to hear you? Just because you're great? Like, well, okay, you're great, you're wonderful, you got a good message, but you don't even got a book. You don't got a book, you don't got a podcast, you don't got a platform, you don't got an audience, but you want me to pay you? You should be paying me to get on stage. I'm the one that spent all the money on this marketing and to get all these people here and to sell the tickets and everything else. You have to add value too. If you're adding value, that's how you get paid speaking gigs. But in order to do that, you got to just play the game. You don't got a book, you don't got this, you got that. I mean, you got to have something. Like, or else why shouldn't they hire somebody else who does have a book, or who does have a podcast, or who does have a platform? Because it's competition. Only one keynote for that event. Why should they go with you versus somebody else? Yeah. So that's where I would start at, is make sure that you're worth being paid for.
Yeah. How can people follow you and connect with you further, Adam?
Simple. Instagram, Ask Adam Torres. Send me a message. Say you saw me on the Nathan Newberry show, and love to connect. There's a link tree there. We have so much free stuff for you. I believe, no offense to anybody else, but we give out more free content and more free things than any other media company or platform of our size in the world, period. Like, there's free ebooks. There's so much stuff. There's a link tree there. There's tons of content. I already told you my recording schedule for the year. So you want to talk about episodes or anything else, like, we love to have you. But just shoot me a DM on Instagram or connect with us however you'd like to. But Ask Adam Torres, that'll let you out to the whole platform on Instagram or anywhere else, really, TikTok, whatever. But Instagram's the one that I personally check. So Ask Adam Torres.
Perfect. I'll put the link down in the show notes for everybody to go follow Adam. He's a good guy. He knows a lot. I think you guys will get a lot of value from him and his podcast and his speaking and even his business that could probably help support you. So go check that out. And if you haven't already, down below in that show notes, don't forget to get that free workshop that's going to help you out. Adam, thanks for being on the show, and we will see you guys on the next episode.